Here we are, right back where we last left off. On my MacBook, I have my Mac hard disk icon in the upper right hand corner. I have a folder on my desktop. Notice that the folder is named MIS2402 Workspace. Yours might be called simply Workspace. Either is fine. But what I want you to note is that this folder name uses all lowercase letters, numbers, and has no spaces or punctuation in it. And that's a deliberate choice on my part. The more spaces you put in, the more mixed case, uppercase, lowercase mixture that you put into your file and folder names, the more punctuation marks, dashes, hyphens, underscores, whatnot, the more difficult your life becomes. So this simple file name, simple folder name is a deliberate choice on my part, and I encourage you to make that a practice moving forward. It just removes one more source of error for you later on. And I'm talking to you as future programmers who will have to work with multiple folders and multiple files, and the more uncertainty you can remove from those file and folder names, the easier your life gets. All right, enough of that. I'm going to double click on my folder. Here are the two files that I created previously, hello.html and hello.txt. If I double click on hello.html, it's going to open up in Safari because Safari is the default browser on this MacBook. And you can see where it is here in the address bar. This Hello World file is read from the local file system. It's not on the internet. If it was on the internet, this would start with HTTP or HTTPS. I just read it off my local file system. And it was in the users folder, then the student folder, then the desktop folder, then the MIS2402 workspace folder. These are all folders inside of other folders, and then hello.html. There's my file. As I've previously noted, I don't particularly like Safari for web development. Some people can make it work. There's lots and lots of configuration changes that you need to make. I would much rather, though, use Chrome, the most popular browser on the planet. Thank you very much. So I'm going to make Chrome the default browser on this MacBook. So to do that, that means every time I double click on an HTML file, it's going to open up in Chrome instead of Safari. So to do that globally, I'm going to go to the Apple in the upper left-hand corner, click on System Preferences, and I'm going to find General. If you can't find General, you can search for it, but this is going to be right here, the General icon. I'm going to double click there, and it says here, just about halfway down on the General page, that the default web browser should be, and I'm going to change it to one of the other browsers that's already installed on my MacBook. If you don't see Chrome here, that means you have to go install it. All right, so I'll leave that to you. Install Chrome, click the red dot. Now when I double click on hello.html, I'm going to get this page. Notice that the browsers are doing exactly what browsers do. They read the HTML file with all of its tags and interpret it as a page for a person to read. So Chrome did that, Safari did that, Firefox would do that if I was using Firefox. So this looks pretty good. Let me just add quickly that if you got this page could not be displayed error, just know that I encountered that problem too. It took my MacBook a little bit of time to catch up and realize that it was okay for Chrome to read files off of my desktop and open them up in this way. I found that I could force Chrome to open up a particular file by, I closed out of my browser, closed out of my full Finder window here, but I'm still in Chrome. I could go to File, Open File, and you can see that Chrome is going to say, well, which file do you want? And then I have to find my folder. So let's say you were dropped in here. You would go to your desktop, MIS2402 workspace, hello.html, and open. And there it is. That, for me, forced my Mac operating system to get over that hurdle of, are you sure this is okay? So the Mac operating system likes to protect various locations on your hard disk. Like the desktop is more protected than other areas. So here we go. I was able to do that. I hope that helps somebody who's maybe hitting that problem. All right, now that I have Chrome set as my default browser, I would like to install my IDE. That's an integrated development environment. There are different software titles that promise to help programmers write code. We're going to use Visual Studio Code. It's some free software that is very, very, very popular among developers and coders. So I'm going to go down to the lower right-hand corner here on my screen. I'm going to open up Chrome, and on the Chrome, on the Google homepage, I'm going to search for Visual Studio Code download. There it is, and there's my link. It's the first thing, the first match. You can make sure it's right. You look at the URL. It says https://code.visualstudiocode.com. This gets translated as a slash and then download. That's the one I want. There it is up again in my address bar in case you didn't believe me. I have several different buttons I could use here. I have a button for Windows, 2 buttons for Linux, and a button for the Mac operating system. I want the Mac one, so I'm going to click on that. Here it comes. It tells me that my download should automatically start, and sure enough, I can see this little progress indicator in the upper right-hand corner telling me that some downloads are happening and I am done. Now, what was downloaded is something called a zip file. That means a zip file needs to be unzipped or unarchived. I already have some software on my MacBook to help me unzip things. I think most MacBook installations have some sort of unarchiver or unzip utility already built in, but if they don't, you would have to go get one. All right, I want to look at this inside of the Finder, so I'm going to click Show in Finder, and I'm going to double click on the zip file, and there's my archive utility that's unzipping the file. And again, if you don't have archive utility, you might have some other software that unzips the file. And if you can't unzip a file, you're really kind of limited in what you can and can't do. So you have to go to the Apple Store and go get one of those. All right, there's my code. The downloads folder is not a good place for a app to sit. I would like my app file to be in my applications folder. So I'm going to click and hold that mouse button down. I'm dragging this over into applications. Great, I moved it over and I don't need the zip file anymore. I might as well trash that. So that was a right mouse click and move to trash. Very good. Going to click on applications now. And it takes my Mac a second to load up all the applications, but if I were to sort them in reverse alphabetical order, I can see that Visual Studio Code here is near the top of my list. And I'm going to do one more weird thing. So let me close out of Chrome in the background here. I don't need that right now. I'm going to do something very unusual. I'm going to right mouse click on this and say make alias. So an alias is like a shortcut or a quick reference, and I would like that alias to be, I'm going to click off of it for a second. I'd like that alias to be over here. So I'm going to click this and drag the alias over to the desktop. And there you can see there's like a little arrow here, super tiny, Visual Studio Code.app, and that lets me open up Visual Studio Code from here. Now, why do I do that? Well, for starters, I'm kind of forgetful, and I like to just have things on my desktop where I can see them. I also do that because as an instructor, sometimes a student will come and say, "Oh, Professor Schaefer, I installed everything that you told me to, but I can't find it anywhere on my computer." Well, if you followed my instructions, you'd have this shortcut here on your desktop, and you should have no trouble at all finding it. So it's a little bit of self-preservation for me as an instructor there, to make sure that everybody does this. All right, double clicking. Visual Studio Code is going to start up for the first time. You can see it verifying, and the Mac OS wants to make sure that I'm not doing anything dangerous. So it says Visual Studio Code.app is an app downloaded from the internet. Heavens to Betsy! What was I thinking? Are you sure you want to open it? Yes, I am. I'm going to open that. And again, this is the Mac OS trying to protect me from doing something that could compromise my laptop in some way. But this is safe. So I'm going to click open. And it's going to take a moment. And you can see that VS Code is starting up. And it's going to prompt me for some sort of getting started information. I could change my color scheme. I'm not going to do any of that. I'm just going to keep the default scheme. So I'll close this. And from here, I'm going to open up a folder. Can you guess which one? That's right. It's going to be this one back here. I'm going to open this folder in Visual Studio Code. To do that, I can go to File, Open Folder, navigate my desktop, and there is my MIS2402 workspace folder. And I'm not going to open up the files. I just want to open up the folder. Open. Now it's going to prompt me and ask me if I trust this folder. The Mac OS may also prompt you and say, do you want to allow Visual Studio Code to open up, do you want to allow VS Code to open up folders on your desktop? The answer is yes. Do you trust the authors of the file in this folder? Well, the author is you, so yes. I'm going to hit yes, trust. And again, I don't need this welcome information. I'm going to close that. If I were to click on hello.html, I would see the HTML code that we created previously. Notice that here the tags are color coded and the text is white, the tags are blue, the language attribute is in a reddish orange color. And if that's a little hard to see, you can zoom in on this. There's command options for that, but you can also use a keystroke for it's Command Shift plus sign. That will zoom in a little bit, makes everything bigger, and Command Shift minus will make it smaller. You don't need to know that necessarily, but I do that all the time so that you can see what I have in the video here. And this is the code that's behind that Hello World HTML page. This is what the browser interprets. Now I want to do one more thing. And the last thing here is to add an extension that's going to make our lives easier as we move forward. So I can go over to the left. There are icons here on the left. I want the extensions icon. It looks like several blocks. I'm going to click on that. And I have the option of installing many, many different possible extensions. But the one I want is called Open in Browser. Oop, I have a little trouble typing there. It's the one from TechER. That's the one I want. I'm going to click on Install. Here it comes. And it's installed. Once I do that, I'm going to close this, go back to my files and folders, and I'm going to click on hello.html again, and I'm going to click over here as if I was going to edit the file. Once I have that extension installed, I can now quickly right mouse click here and look at this. There's an open in default browser option. So I can click there and I can go into Hello World. I can always tell when I'm teaching in-person classes, I can always tell when a student just has not followed along with the video. When they show up to class and they say, I am right mouse clicking and I don't have that option. Well, I just told you how to install it. It's an extension. You add in the open in browser extension and then you're able to right mouse click and say open in default browser and see your work. I'm going to do one last thing and then we'll be done with this video. Now that I have this, I can right mouse click on hello.html. I can choose copy. I can right mouse click over here in the Explorer space and choose paste. And I get a copy of hello.html. I have hello. I'm going to rename that to work. WORK and click, and now I have a copy of this, and I can say learn some new tags and file and save and right mouse click and open in default browser. Reload that. Oh, and my title is learn some new tags. It's right there. Let's make that also learn some new tags. Save it and open it in the default browser. I have learned some new tags in the title, learned some new tags in the H1 space. That's a good place for me to stop. And great, we're going to move on from there. See you in the next video.